All righty. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on what part of the country you're in. It is us, MCOY, Melanated Council of the Yang, streaming most nights, Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and anywhere else around the world. If you guys can catch us, we're here. So, tonight, we're going to have, some people jumping in and on for tonight's stream, and it is based upon being black in the Yang Gang. Yeah. That is the topic for tonight, being black in the Yang Gang. And we're going to talk about some good things, some not so good things, some things that made us happy, some things that made us mad, all of it. And it is basically, I look at it as a reflection kind of a moment, because of the fact that we've been through so much, we've learned through so much, and wanted to get people's perspectives and just talk about this topic because it's needed. It's needed. It's very much needed. And I think that with this topic, it might get a little touchy, but then again, hey, what topic have we not talked about that hasn't been touchy in one way, shape, or form? So we're going to do what we do best, and we're going to talk about the hard topics, and we're going to talk about those touchy topics, and then again, just clear the air. So, start off on a clean slate, especially going into 2021. Start off on a clean slate. Agreed? Yes. Agreed. All right, and so how are we going to kick this off? L, Toby, what was your guys' experience as far as being black in the Yang
Gang? There you go. I can go first.
Go for it.
So I first heard about Yang March last year, I think. I don't know. This year has been like 3 years long. So whenever he started running, it was that March of that year.
Mm-hmm.
Or when he started getting big, rather. I heard from him from The Breakfast Club.
Okay.
Some random friend on Facebook shared it. And I was just like, oh, an Asian guy running for president. That's interesting. I'd like to hear what he has to say. And since then, I was just hooked because everything he was saying just made a whole ton of sense. And trying to find spaces where you can hear, like other Yang Gang folk was kind of difficult. So I went to Reddit because Reddit usually has everything.
Mm-hmm. And
Reddit was great. Like the Yang Gang subreddit was really, really great. And a lot of Yang folk. Hey, Nick.
Hey, Nick. Welcome.
Hey, welcome. So I was just talking about, like my experiences in the Yang Gang. So, just like a lot of Yang Gang folk, I started getting, just addicted because like Reddit was always the first place to go or that had information, like boom, 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 constant. And with Yang, it wasn't that often of information, but, that was always the first place where information would usually pop up. And I wasn't really on Twitter at the time. So I started sorting by new. And I've been a Redditor since like 2011. And I know that Reddit is primarily a space for white men. Not that there aren't non-white men on Reddit. There's everything on Reddit, I feel. There's every single subreddit about anything. You can always find your space in Reddit. However, if it's just a general subreddit, it's usually geared towards white men. Not necessarily on purpose. It's just always seemed to be the case. One of the things I did like about Yang was that he appealed to Trump supporters. I knew that would be important in the general election. And one of the things I loved is I loved learning why people voted for Trump, because I didn't know. You can call me a coastal elite or what have you, but it was just the typical what Yang would say, cocktail reasons of Russia, racism, etc., and so forth. But to learn about what was going on, in the Rust Belt in the Midwest and in those states, and automation was, very fascinating because I didn't know that was even going on. I'm in South Florida. I'm just kind of, I went to college, graduated, have my job, was just living my life, doing my own thing. I had no idea that this was even going on. So it made sense. People need jobs for money, and they need money to live and do everything that they needed to do. And so when those jobs went away, somebody's coming and saying, "Hey, I'll bring the jobs back." Yeah, that makes sense as to why somebody would vote for Trump. So I really enjoyed that that Yang appealed to Trump supporters. What I didn't like about the Yang subreddit was it seemed that they were very it was very arms wide open for Trump supporters. They were letting them in, it was, as if essentially what Trump was spewing wasn't fucked up and racist. They were just letting them in. It's like, okay, I understand humanity first. All right, whatevs. I know that this is gonna be a shit show, but all right, let's let's go. So, not to say that Trump supporters can't be welcome. It's like it's good. It's just the Reddit, the subreddit was letting Trump supporters in with open arms, but Black people, LGBTQ people, women, I didn't feel were as welcome. And I understand that we primarily make up, the the backbone of the Democratic Party, like Black people, women, people of color, LGBTQ, and so on and so forth. So I understand that, yeah, we probably weren't, they weren't welcoming us as as open as possible. However, this was the primaries. Mm-hmm. So when you're trying to get Yang to win the Democratic primary, you have to appeal to the Democratic Party, who's in the Democratic Party. It seemed like the Yang subreddit's course of action was, let's find Republicans, have them change their registration to Democrat, and vote for Yang in the Democratic primary. Which, I'm a web developer. I studied UX, user experience, user interface, and that's too many steps for the average person. We live in a cell phone society. Amazon is ruling partly because they don't make people think. So to rely on this Redditor who's saying, yeah, I will change my registration from Republican to Democrat and have him vote in the primary, that made sense. And to the Yang subreddit, and they were just loving it. They weren't really trying to work towards appealing to the Black vote, it seemed. Any sort of post about reparations got voted the fuck down. It was always zero. Any post about, something trying to appeal more to Black people, whether it was the Black agenda, anything Black, saying Black was practically a curse word in that subreddit. They were just oh, if it has nothing to do with me, because I am not a Black, then something, humanity first, everybody, all people, identity politics, it was just the same old crud. And if these people are coming to you asking these questions, you have no, and you're responding as if what they're saying is stupid and doesn't matter and you shouldn't hear them. You that's not the right way to go. I can understand why Black people, people of color, women, so on and so forth were turned off to Yang via the Yang subreddit if they were sorting by new. And I'm sure a lot of people were, because I don't see why not. Of course, it's not the most common thing to do. Yeah, most people sort by, hot or best or top or whatever. But, if you're curious about something, or if you wanted to post a question and your question gets shot the fuck down, and yeah, Trevor Russell, that's sort of what it was, at least in the Yang subreddit. Mm-hmm. And it was bad. It was disgusting. Like this world of, like a mindset of abundance, but reparations, they would act like, they wouldn't get UBI if reparations were to ever get passed or something. So like it was just like, I don't know. It was just like a massive slap in the face. I felt sometimes like I was going through my comments like a couple of days ago, and I was like, man, I was talking a lot about race. Was I really trying to stick up this hard? Because usually I'm not that type of person. I know it's a bit ironic that I'm in this group, but like I'm usually really not that type of person who's, out here really trying to stick up for the Black community, like as fucked up as that may sound. It's just, I just noticed that nobody was doing that. So I'm like, I'm a Black person who's sorting by new, who's looking at this stuff. I can't be the only one knowing how the internet works. There's probably some other Black people. So I guess I have to step up to the plate and start commenting and talking and conversing to the best of my abilities. I believe I suck at it, but someone's got to do it. Someone's got to be there just in case somebody like me is searching and they're like, oh, okay, there is a Black person here, like, oh, okay, that's good. Because I understand that sort of community. I was not feeling that at all, at least from sorting by new. So I don't know, that was my biggest issue of the Yang Gang, but also learning about why people voted for Trump and understanding that reasoning was very, very rewarding to me.
Nice. Toby, Nick, again, pose the same question to you. What was your guys' experience as far as being Black in the Yang Gang? To you can pick and choose who wants to go next. Hey, President Manning.
President Manning.
Hey.
Good to see you. Always glad to have you in the chat. I don't know. I was gonna say, Nick, I mean, you're like, this is the first time you're on here, and I was curious to hear your thoughts. I have thoughts, and I definitely have some things to piggyback off what Elle said, but yeah, I figured since this is your first one, why not give you the go around?
Being Black in the Yang Gang.
Okay.
Yeah, I've not been on the Reddit quite as much as you, obviously. Didn't really look into what all those comments were about or anything like that. But my experience, it kind of goes a little before that. I read a book about UBI a couple years before Yang got in the race, and I've kind of just been sold on the idea since. And back when I first read my first book about it, it's called Raising the Floor by Andy Stern. It was about a guy who ran a union, and then after he ran the SEIU, and then he decided that he couldn't see the long-term vision with automation and the Uberization of work for his union to work out in the long term. He kind of went back to the drawing board, and UBI was kind of his thing in the end. So, back then when I read that book, I figured, oh yeah, that's a real radical idea. Maybe America will be on board like sometime around 2029, in time for Martin Luther King's birthday or something like that, and, before you know it, there's like some guy running for president on UBI. I was really surprised with that. So, so as far as being Black, I reached out to the Metro Detroit Yang Gang a couple times, met them at a bar to watch the debate. But nothing like, as far as being a Black person who's a Yang supporter really stuck out to me. I've always just kind of thought a lot about just UBI in general as part of being Black. Like you were mentioning, is it more important to advocate for UBI or reparations? How is ending poverty going to be different in rural America, which came from like, a lot of Yang's fans, especially in Iowa, were people who were, struggling because of automation and stores closing down. How will UBI affect recidivism? What will UBI's part play in like ending the racial wealth gap? Is banking Black going to be more important and crucial, when we have an era of UBI? How progressive does the a UBI bill need to be? And of course, we're stereotypically on welfare. Like, is it going to need to be progressive enough to keep food stamps? Who's going to like advocate for that on our behalf? And of course, we have partisan leanings about all the different funding streams of UBI. I don't know. So yeah, as far as my experience with that, those are just questions I've been wrestling with. And when I saw that you were going to have the session today, I thought I kind of want to see what other folks about that, other Black UBI advocates would think about that. So,
right on. Fair enough. Toby, on you.
So, condensing my thoughts on it all. I mean, I just kind of similar to L. saw.
I threw a lot at you.
Similar to L, I had like thoughts, or I had what do you call it? I had sort of gotten hip to Yang in the campaign probably back in March. I wasn't really, I would say, a supporter until maybe April or even May. I think May officially, and I was like, this is cool. Now I went to an event I know in New Hampshire because I live in Massachusetts, so New Hampshire was very, very close, and it kind of maybe a little spoiled because not any weekend, but many weekends you could find where Yang was doing events. So I drove up once. And there was like some Democratic Party hosting him. And I did notice that, I was the only Black person. There weren't that many minorities. And it was fine. I'm used to being in those kind of spaces. I kind of grew up mostly around white people and always being an extra minority. Even growing up in Maryland, which is a pretty diverse state, I grew up in parts that weren't as diverse. So again, I didn't feel too out of place not seeing other Black people. And I just liked the policies for what they were. I loved the way that he spoke and I liked the vision. And just like Elle said, I really liked the appeal to Trump supporters and independents and basically anyone who felt like the system wasn't working how it should be. And I was like, this is awesome. Now, I was on Reddit a little bit, but I never really saw as much racial consternation there. What I noticed, though, was after the first few debates, particularly the second debate, where that was actually in Detroit. Really good debate, a lot of exposure, a lot of people got more interested in him. And like everything blew up. Like the Yang campaign, I don't think was expecting how many people flocked to the campaign after that on Facebook. I know like in terms of the orders, they were backlogged. And so I noticed, and there was a lot that started happening that summer and September, particularly around race, because, Yang had been basically, there was a comedian who made some Asian slurs, including about Yang, like Shane somebody, Gillis maybe. And I remember when Yang kind of responded to that incident where it was like, this isn't appropriate, but he basically said, I don't think the guy should lose his job from SNL. There was a bunch of people who were like, almost like annoyed at the fact that he expressed that viewpoint. And there was actually, I remember in the Facebook base camp for Yang, there was one woman, a Black woman, and unfortunately, Facebook is just like, I say Facebook was the Wild West. Like Twitter is insane, don't get me wrong, but Facebook is sort of like where people really like put these personal views out there. Like 2016, that was like the platform where everyone was like full of drama. People were blocking each other. People were like, auntie, like what? My aunt, my sister, you voted for Trump, you did this. And then Facebook was just like a mess because of how personal it is and how like connected it is to real people. So there was a bit of that came out where I know one Black woman was like, I like Yang, but I'm always so annoyed at how he doesn't seem to take a strong stance against racism. And there was a bunch of people who piled on and were like, are you serious? Like, what do we have? Like, I don't remember what they're saying, but it was kind of harsh. And I guess there are people who felt very defensive of Yang. And I mean, I know sometimes I can feel like that, but it was like people weren't really trying to discuss race in a broader way, but it was just like, you're dumb or you're wrong for thinking this, get over it. And I remember at the end, she said, you know what, I'm leaving this group if this is how it's going to be. Now, I don't know how she felt about her support for Yang overall, but I remember some of us, like I think I may have commented something. I didn't message her. I don't really know what happened with her, but I felt like things like that happen where people are watching, people are interested, and then they end up getting turned off by some rhetoric, not by Yang himself, but like just by a lot of the way people talk about race, like race doesn't exist, or like anytime you talk about Black or anything racial, it's identity politics or it's pandering. And it's like, there definitely can be things that are identity politics and there can definitely be things that are pandering. But just talking about the fact that there are differences, there are communities that vote, historically this way, and there's certain issues that should be looked at, and then just dismissing that with this type of, empty blanket statements without actually having a real conversation is going to be a turnoff. And like, I know on Twitter, a big thing was, this was more so about just in terms of being humanity first. And sometimes it was about women in particular, because it could be very bro-ish on Twitter.
Reddit, it was peak bro.
Yeah, I can imagine with Reddit as well. But it was always like, you don't know who's watching. Like, you never know who's watching us on this platform. I never thought about that for Reddit. I definitely thought about it for Twitter, which easily things go viral and kind of go outside of the scope. Facebook, similarly, you can see something. But yeah, like every platform, people are watching. And so if you're not making it a welcoming place where people can really learn and talk about race issues, then it's like, what are we really doing? And I feel like, Eldon, what you said is exactly spot on. The overemphasis to downplay race. I think there were a lot of times where like, I can feel a little uncomfortable where it's like, okay, race is being talked about, and I don't really know what the correct quote unquote right answer is. And there's just times where you kind of don't know, like, it can be very sensitive for sure. And a lot of people, if you don't say something exactly perfectly, or if your views aren't exactly in line, you're borderline crucified. And so I could be kind of nervous sometimes when racial issues came up, because sometimes I didn't really know how do you really handle all these things with all the nuances. But the goal isn't to like run away from it. Like, I think he had a great interview with Karen Hunter. They went and talked about a lot of that. He had great interviews with Breakfast Club, also other groups where he could talk about race. And like, sometimes the people, they might not be completely satisfied with the answer, but they knew he was a smart guy. They knew that he was willing to come into this type of area. And a lot of times people just were like not having it. And that is just not going to work, especially after this year. I mean, we created this channel literally because of all of the tragedies, in early summer coming along with the police brutality, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery. And so this type of stuff has to be talked about. There has to be an emphasis on race issues, and it shouldn't just kind of be like, a trending thing that you do on Instagram and then go back to it a month later. So I feel like if people in the Yang don't learn to like embrace race issues, know how to talk about it, really listen, then you're going to go nowhere for whatever future plans are going to be had.
I did want to...
go ahead.
Okay. I did want to talk a little bit more about like what you were just saying, Toby. I guess I didn't quite get to that. Like, I didn't mention that when I was talking about, like Trump supporters open with, welcoming with open arms. What I wanted to speak about is a lot of them, of course, were conservative. And when you're coming from, from a conservative, platform, people, you never had to appeal to race, because when you vote in the for the Republican primary, it's predominantly white people voting anyway. Right.
Yeah. And it seemed like a lot of them were just into it because they just liked it better than, well, maybe they were just tired of Trump's incompetence, but they kind of just liked the idea of having UBI as opposed to, say, like Elizabeth Warren's, big wealth tax, or, Bernie Sanders, it wasn't necessarily about what they could get out of it. It's what they believed the government should be doing. And they thought UBI would be an exception because, that's kind of why it caters conservatives. It's not like Bernie, paying for everybody's college, or, or it wasn't talking about, Medicare for all, and all the stuff that would cost. It was just about, and like I said, it was for the food stamps. Yang's UBI specific plan was, you got to give up your food stamps if you're going to get it. And they just like that lean, just a leaner way of economic sustainability. And it seemed like Yang hindered more on economic issues than social issues. So
no, which I really liked.
Yeah.
But,
And plus, like the real smart conservatives who are really pro-life were always able to say, like, well, if most abortions happen because they don't have enough money, then let's have UBI. It's the most pro-life thing you could vote for, you know.
I agree.
Agreed.
Because we can't lie and act as if abortions aren't going to happen if we just make it illegal. Mm-hmm. Because people in power will for sure still have abortions if like their mistress gets pregnant.
Facts.
Yeah. So I believe just make abortion legal and give everybody UBI so abortion will be less common. Like it won't be happening as often. Rather.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Agreed. You know. There we go. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What's up, boys?
Hey, mindful skeptics.
Michigan people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. We've got some stuff in the works. So, but yeah, it's funny. Elle, Toby, and Nick. I know you guys kind of brought up your backgrounds, and I know Elle, you talked about Reddit, and Toby, you talked about the base camp, and I know that when I was in the Michigan Reddit for Yang, I kind of experienced a mixture of both things, Yeah. Boys.
Certainly are.
Boys. On hush. We gotta keep it on hush for the time being. But the Michigan Reddit for Yang, it was a combination of you had those Trump supporters that lived in rural Michigan that were coming out and saying, okay, we want to, do show our support for Yang because we believe that what he's doing, is better than what the other candidates are presenting. The majority of his ideas, they were a lot more progressive. They were a lot more centered around the people. And again, with UBI coming into play to help people basically to get off of social welfare and actually have money in their hands to be able to do what they wanted to do, that was like, okay, cool, great. Why not? That's forward thinking, But when it came to talking about racial issues and things pertaining to African Americans and people of color in groups, it was not, it was talked about, but it was almost like brushed away to the side,
Mm-hmm.
And when I joined, and everybody's like, you got to join the Reddit, you got to do this, you got to do that. I'm like, okay, I don't want to feel like I'm like the only Black person on Reddit, and I have all these questions and like what to do and whatnot, and I get looked upon like, what are you and who are you doing on Reddit, And especially like trying to find places to go and volunteer in the canvas, like, oh, it was a crap show, like. For real, like I had to go through at least 4 or 5 different Reddit groups in Michigan to find the closest one to me, which again, Michigan winter is not a fun drive. Anybody from Michigan, they'll tell you like driving in the wintertime in Michigan, it sucks. Even if you got snowplow trucks going on a consistent basis, it sucks, and I'm like, okay, cool. So like, well, yeah, go to the base camp on Facebook and get connected there. So I'm like, okay, cool. I go there and I hardly see anybody that was Black. Hardly. I mean, granted, there are probably people there, but they were from like out of state or whatever, and they wanted to come and do this and the third. Like, okay, cool, but like, where's like an actual like Black group that I can talk to that's in Michigan that's supportive of Yang? Like, where's that net at? Like, where's that group at? Because we understand our issues, we understand our struggles, we understand that our wants and needs are a little bit different from everybody else's, but not to say that ours should be like boom at the top. Like, no, we have different needs. We have different things that we need in order for our families to actually live and survive and thrive. You know, we don't have that easy access to capital like most races do. We don't. You know, and it shows. We don't have that easy access to owning a home. You know, financial literacy was never really taught at home. Right. And even at school, you know, most of the people that went to public schools, it really wasn't taught about unless you had like a special teacher that actually took the time out of like, you know, hey, this is what you need to do when you get older. By the time you get 16, you get a job, you get a bank account, you do da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You know, other than that, no. So when it came time to actually go out and go canvassing, especially in the Kalamazoo region, I almost felt as though I was probably the only Black person, but not the only person of color, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and so it was like, okay, cool. You know, no big deal. We're out in the middle of the cold, you know, knocking on doors. Hey, you know, we're canvassing for Andrew Yang, ask you a few questions, blah, blah, blah. And people kind of looked at me like weird, like it's funny, you know, you have a guy who's Asian and you have the young Black guy that's with a group of white people, you know, knocking on doors. And it was kind of like, are you from Michigan? Like, yes, I actually am. I grew up in this city, so I know where to go. And even when we went to talk about it, we got done knocking on doors, and I asked a question like, you know, hey, have you guys considered going to the north side of Kalamazoo? Have you guys considered going to the east side of Kalamazoo? Areas that are predominantly Black. Oh no, you know, we that's not in our territory. What do you mean that's not in your territory? Kalamazoo is probably one of the most democratic cities in Michigan, next to Detroit. Like, why not? You know, I bet you if you go to the north side and talk to the people there, like, you know, hey, there's a guy named Andrew Yang. He wants to give you and your whole family that's over the age of 18 $1,000 per month to get you off of food stamps and do this, that, and the third. All you got to do is vote him in for office and everything else. On top of that, he's trying to make sure that people that got put into jail for non-violent drug offenses, get them out, make marijuana legal. You know, what do you say? That resonates with Black folks, you know, and it never registered. It was almost like, we hear you, but that's not on the agenda per se. And it kind of made me mad. So I actually stepped away from Facebook, stepped away from Reddit. That was actually the number one thing why I stopped using Reddit, like completely, was because of that. You know, and I went on Twitter, like, you know, okay, support Yang, but I want to know if there's other Black people on social media that feels the same way. So here I am with MCOY. and again, you know, it's been a journey in itself, but also the reflection of like, listen, the Democratic Party, it really does hinge upon, whether we want to admit it or not, you know, African Americans and people of color. It hinges upon their vote. I mean, sure, granted, yes, we do have some that vote Republican. We understand why. We get that. But the vast bulk, you know, is African Americans. And I wouldn't say sadly, but records show that predominantly Black women, they tend to vote more, a whole lot more, and they tend to vote a whole lot more Democratic than Republican. You know, the Black males is like they're there, but they're not there. Like,
I mean, they're I'd say they're pretty there.
And again,
in terms of like men demographics, like they're, you know, yeah, Black men, yeah.
Yeah,
like the second.
Democrats tend to just take the Black vote for granted. Joe's been saying he wasn't going to this time, but we'll see.
And again, let me reiterate what I was saying too. It kind of put an emphasis. the black male vote, yes, of course, it's there. We know that. We get that. Record shows it's there. But at the same time, they're not there. Meaning, like, you can have a dad in a house, but he's not actually being a dad. He's just there taking space. Most of the time when it came to the black male vote, it was more so, especially when it came to the Democrats, it was basically like that. Like, yes, they're there, but if you're not going to cater to them, they're not going to be there for you. Yes, you may get a few that's going to show up and vote, but at the same time, for the vast majority of them, no, they're not. And even when I told my family, like, yeah, I support Andrew Yang. Oh man, I got weird looks. Like, really, Andrew Yang? Like, out of all the people, Andrew Yang? Like, yeah, like, I read his policy page and it's very promising. I like what he's suggesting. I like what he's offering, and it's different. It's a good difference. It's a step up than what we've been getting, and it kind of let me feel isolated, but then again, it was a good isolation because it means like I'm thinking forward, I'm progressive,
right?
In my way of thinking and wanting to different and go about it doing that, So those are my thoughts, and those are where I came from, and I hope that anybody that's watching that's just kind of wanting to pick brains as far as like black folks go is like there's certain things that we want that we've been neglected for years. There's certain things that we fought for that again has been neglected for years, and the Democratic Party yet again has failed as a party as a whole to understand those demands. I mean, sure, the Civil Rights Act, yes, those were great, those were good, but those are just a platform. That was the foundation of what was supposed to come afterwards. Never happened.
What taking a knee in kente cloth isn't going to change things?
Was that again?
Taking a knee in kente cloth isn't going to change things. You remember Pelosi?
Yeah. The House Democratic Caucus. Oh man.
That was excuse my sarcasm. But yeah.
No, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Actually, that kind of brings up a question because it's something that I really struggle with, because I always hear like you heard about Mike Render. He opened up that black bank in Atlanta. Called Greenwood and everything. And every time you talk to the activism type, it's all about, we got to start spending more money in our communities, and we got to start banking black, and we got to build capital and local businesses. And I've been hearing that for years and years. I started reading about UBI. I was like, okay, this is how you do it. And do you think, you're talking about like a lot of those other things, like helping us do financial literacy, making sure the housing market is fair, all of that. I just see UBI as like a first step of many, and I kind of like tend to want to focus. When I'm always thinking about those types of issues, I always think like, okay, well, we can get UBI started, and then all that other stuff will be easier to do.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think as far as like priorities? Would you say like, do we try to fight for UBI and reparations, or both, or which order was the priority? And I always have tons of mixed feelings, with reparations.
Right.
Hearing the other argument, the Ta-Nehisi Coates articles are really good. It's a real big toss up, but reparations is such a touchy subject, and and I'm just kind of like, okay, well, let's start with the base in UBI and see how it goes. And how is that ending poverty going to help? How much is it going to help people in coastal areas where $1,000 doesn't go very well? As opposed, and the same thing in the rural areas, they always claim, well, you only have so much coming into my small town markets. 1,000 a month could just make people at the stores raise their prices. So, and like, of course, UBI isn't a silver bullet, but like, what would you say? How, like, is that the first step, or does all that other stuff need to be considered as we fight for UBI?
You want to take it? You want to go, El?
Sure. I definitely think UBI is definitely the first step. This could just be the developer in me, but I'm all for troubleshooting, just trying something and see if it'll work. Right. I feel that UBI will very much so work, considering all of the, what's it called, like means tested trials that they've done everywhere all the time, and it's always been nothing but good things. I don't think anyone's like, money in my account. No, that's never going to be the case. It's like, I don't want this. Of course, it's going to be, some random person who's going to, but, they're just going to be.
Yeah, but, conservatives always are like, oh, you're not entitled to anything, type of stuff.
Well, it's just how you market it and phrase it. It's not like it's an entitlement. It's technically our money just being rerouted in a different way. And that's honestly all you really need to tell people. You don't have to really.
Well, because I always see that whole left, not right, but forward. And I talk to my conservative friends, and I'll show them like the AEI did, put up together a plan that's budget neutral, which is just a lot of slashing different social programs to pay for it. What do you think as far as like, I guess how progressive and how conservative the bill will just kind of end up what Congress decides to do and which parties are empowered to push it. But do you have any like specific funding streams that you think would be most beneficial?
You mean like to fund UBI?
Yeah, like, the VAT, perhaps carbon dividend, citizen seniorage, ending tax expenditures, cutting food stamps.
I definitely think everything that Yang said was correct.
Okay.
And I'll admit it.
You like his plan opposed to other ones you read?
Well, I was just gonna say other ways of funding UBI. I'll be straight up honest. It's not that I've really delved into it as much. I'll be honest. I don't mind being naive on camera. But I do think that I was gonna say like tax the rich more, but I do think that is necessary, and also like not funding military as much. Take a little bit out of that. Like I think we put money towards that during the pandemic. I mean, I don't like. I'm sure there's wars and shit going on in somewhere, but I don't think really everybody's dealing with a pandemic right now.
Yeah.
In the world ever.
UBI blew up because of this pandemic.
Right, exactly. People are like, oh, we need money to stay home. I was like, yeah, no shit.
Right. And it's funny that we're talking about this because there's some questions in the chat that's been dropped down. And it actually goes along, Nick, with what you're saying as far as should we concentrate on UBI reparations or anything else? And I know what Andrew said while he was campaigning. He said if we could get UBI passed and implemented and made it into law and everything else, that will set up reparations in itself, right? Because it'll show that
it's possible.
Yes, it's possible. They can happen, and we can do it. It's not as though we'll take the latest defense bill. They didn't ask, oh, do we have the money for this latest defense bill? No, it passed in the House 300 plus to like a very small number. It passed. They didn't ask if we had money for it. They just did it. And so the same lines go as well as like, okay, if that's the case, then let's pass UBI. Let's make that a law. And so from there, that's going to catapult into, okay, we've done UBI, it's been working. Let's go ahead. Let's get this reparations knocked out the way. Boom. that's done. It's set in stone, you know. And a lot of people they're talking about like, well, how will we fund it and blah 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 blah. That opens up a whole nother topic and case and everything else. But if we look at the vast majority of the Scandinavian countries that have some sort of UBI in form, they have a VAT tax and they have a VAT, and basically that helps to fund it. And so they're like, okay, if I'm able and willing, mind you, willing that part now, if I'm able and willing to pay a little bit more in my taxes, I know that's going to funnel back to me again, anyways. It's going to cause me to have more money, you know. And by me having more money, I'm able to spend a little bit more and everything else. I'm able to save a little bit more. I'm able to do this a little bit more, you know, and that's fair. And a lot of people in those countries, they tend to be happy. And mind you, a lot of those countries tend to be the top 10 safest places in the world, the best places in the world, healthcare in the world.
Smartest kids.
Yeah, they tend to be at the top 10. And if you ever decide to look at where the United States is, half the time on those very same lists, we're not even in the top 25. We're not.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. You go ahead and you Google where is the United States as far as the top safest countries in the world. It's not in the top 10. It's not in the top 25 at all. It's not. And so it just goes to show that with that being said, you know, a UBI would be very beneficial, because like what Elle said, you know, you look at your bank account, you get $1,000 in your bank. It's not like ew. It's like, oh snaps, I got $1,000 in my account. Like bills paid, yes. Or you already paid your bills, you got $1,000. Like, oh, I got $1,000 in my account. Like, what is the one thing I done put off for years that I'm willing to do right now, and knowing that the following week I still get another paycheck from my job, so I get $1,000 a month plus my typical job salary, or you know, it just makes sense. And then you throw in the reparations piece, you know, it's like it's a no-brainer. It's going to be a win-win for everybody. Now, with all that being said, chat, thank you for being patient with us. We're going to answer your questions, and we're going to start off with Trevor Russell, and this is the one he posted earlier. He said, what are your thoughts on using a federal legalization of cannabis and taxes where it could be collected to fund reparations? And I'll start this one due to the fact that I was living in Colorado Springs to be exact, for 7 years. And the time that they went ahead and they made marijuana legal, we saw literally almost like overnight, like municipal marijuana shops started popping up. And then soon afterwards, we saw the recreational marijuana shops popping up. You know, Denver had the most, but the revenue that they gained from those taxes went towards, you know, schools. They said, okay, we're going to, you know, put a tax on marijuana products and marijuana related products, and we're going to funnel that to the school systems to help them out, especially in those areas where they're not on the same playing field, where they need a little bit more resources, i.e. money for textbooks, for teachers, this is that and the third. It will allow them to use those money for, you know, whatever. And it kind of worked, except for it didn't hit all the areas of the schools that actually needed it the most, which was a whole bigger issue and a whole bigger fight. But it could have been done, and it showed that it could be done. Now, as far as on a federal level go, you have to think that as more and more states start passing these legalization laws, yes, it could possibly work out. You know, in the last time I checked before leaving Colorado, I mean, they've made like $4 or $5 million off of just marijuana taxes alone. Yes, it was a lot. They made a killing, and that was just within like the first, I almost want to say like the first year or two, and even then, the following year it was almost like double, triple that what it was the last year. So, it shows like, yeah, the money is there. Like Andrew said, the money is there. We just got to go to the sources, and by taxing those revenues, yeah, clearly it'll be done clearly. It may not be as much as people want as far as reparations go, but it'll be a foundation of, well, it could be done. There's no way around it. Like, yeah, there's money for it. It could be done. It's just marketing it and messaging it, like Elle was saying earlier, messaging it in a way where it's more so beneficial to the citizens versus anybody else. My thoughts. Anybody else want to take a stab at it?
I'm gonna look at the question.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I know that people talk about the legalization of cannabis to like go back and help, I guess, get licenses for people from these underserved communities that have been hit hard. I don't know for like reparations, which is just like an astronomically large thing, if you are actually gonna ever pay for it. Like, I don't even know what kind of funding source you would really need, honestly. But I feel like doing as many reparations type things is exactly what you need. Like, take the drug money, quote unquote, and fund it towards communities, schools, giving it to people, helping people get business licenses. So like, would it be reparations? It would be some kind of form that would help a lot, like heavily prioritizing. I know Virginia, the governor just came out for legalizing marijuana, and that was one of his emphases, was going to be give back to these communities. So I don't know like what it would look like for like an official reparations plan, but at least that should definitely be the focus. Just because I don't know the numbers, but I don't think it's like that much to the point where it's like the trillions or whatever the heck you need. Lord knows, but
I don't think if we were to legalize it on the federal level and it's just legal everywhere, I don't think we'd get to trillions based off of cannabis alone.
Yeah.
No. And again, you're seeing, and I've noticed, you're seeing a lot more states on the west side of the United States. Some, here northeast.
In Oregon, they decriminalized everything, so see how that goes too.
You're seeing a lot of these states, they're passing these similar laws, and they're looking at everything like, okay, we know there's money involved. We can get that money, and we can use that money and funnel it out in different ways here and there. It's possible. It's just, again, are people willing to be able to do that? Are people willing to say, I don't mind paying a higher tax because of A, B, C, and D if I know it's going towards this program, and this program? Okay. But again, as long as the messaging is there and it's right at its own point, a lot more citizens, they'll be like, okay, I get what you're saying. Let's do it. Why not? And then anybody else want to add on?
I think money towards, selling, cannabis, I think it should probably go to prison reform and trying to make the prisons more humane.
Many people who are in marijuana for prison, you're gonna just legalize the drug and just leave them in there? I mean,
right. So definitely get them all out of there, and maybe just use the money to, I don't know, maybe hire therapists for prisons and maybe even schools, and try to make prisons look more humane, and reform it so when people go into prison, they're not just thinking of killing themselves.
Yeah. I also think like when they get out, having a little UBI will help them get back on their feet. You know?
Right.
If you ever watch like Orange is the New Black, anyone ever catch that?
Yeah, I watched a few seasons.
There was like one story about one who got out and it was just so miserable trying to readjust that did a crime to go right back. It's like the opposite of what America stands for, you know. And I'm sure that's more common than.
Yeah, I remember she was saying like, "Oh, you know, here I have a bed, I have friends," and it's like that's so sad because it's true, and that's the case for a lot of people. It's true.
And make sure their voting rights are restored. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
They paid their debt to the society, and we all know that most of those sentences weren't very fair. So
exactly.
Come on. I know Trevor, Toby. I know you saw that quote that Trevor Russell pulled the last one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Trevor, you might want to be careful. You're doing a little bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. You're doing a little bit of foreshadowing. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Don't get it wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. Just we got a topic on that one.
Oh man, I'm checking these comments. My goodness.
Yeah, this has been a very lively chat. Very
Which I'm happy about.
Who's Steven Shield? Why is he asking? Never mind.
I saw that too.
That's why. Yeah, we moving along.
Oh, and Trevor, I see you're from Flint. Went to Western. My brother went to Western. I went to Eastern. Sorry, twice actually. So yeah.
I like Eastern Michigan. It's nice. I like their I actually like their track. I love their track. It's nice. It's nice. Here we go.
Yeah, I saw this one pop up. This alone might be its own conversation. So I had something I had been interested to say about this one. I don't know, Ron, if you were about to say something.
Oh, actually, the one thing was, yes, the conversations with that group. I get the thinking, but man, that was a headache. Oh, it was a headache because like, no, we're not trying to cancel out reparations. We're trying to set it up. We understand that HR 40 has been in Congress since God knows.
Yeah. It's a Michigan congressperson who threw it together. John Conyers, remember him?
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice.
Again, it's there. It's just, again, the old saying goes, well, where's the money to pay for it? Like, y'all got the money. Y'all just don't want to pay for it. Like, clearly, you know, if you were able to pass, what was it, a $2 trillion package to bail out corporations and everything else and pass the PPP.
Got a measly $1,200. Yeah.
Yeah.
Total's 3.8 trillion. So they just pulled that, you know, out of their ass.
Yeah.
I always think like it's scary how we don't see any of the $3.8 trillion. Like you should see $10 bills just flying down the street, just rolling down the street because there's just like $3.8 trillion.
Yes.
That is nothing to sneeze at. That's a lot of money.
It is.
Yeah, and if you start like looking into lots of different plans, you'll see that there are just a lot of different streams. And I always kind of favor me just kind of being more progressive. I kind of favor one that just comes from a lot of different sources.
Yeah.
If you check out this UBI calculator, you can kind of put in your own income, and it will show you like how much you will get depending on the plan and where the funding streams are coming. Let me post it here.
I actually remember that one. I remember that.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of models that they had on there. I liked, because I think Scott said
Scott always writes the best ones.
Scott said he had arguably the best one. It made sense. Like,
yeah,
it really did. It made sense.
It was better than Andrew's plan, I think. It was a little more progressive. Yeah.
Yeah, Scott Santon's who that's like an aside, but that would be a great voice to talk to on here. That would be an amazing conversation to talk about a lot of different types of basic income and even just welfare programs. But he was always on top of it.
If there's any argument against UBI, he has an article that's better than most bad arguments. So yeah.
I
And he's
mean,
there in the Twitter comments.
yes, and then I mean, a lot of the articles, I mean, he written himself because that's what he's a researcher. He does that, and he's well versed. I mean, there's been times where I got asked a question I didn't know how to answer. I'm like, "Hey, Scott, I need to talk to you about this. Like, can you help a brother out? HBO, help me out real quick. Let me run it to him. He run it back. He's like, oh yeah, just da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, that makes sense, Scott. Thank you. Like, bro, I appreciate you so much. Thank you. Yes. Next question.
So actually, I had one. So I know with the thing with ADOS as well, because just for those who aren't completely aware, American Descendants of Slaves is sort of the movement. Usually, foundational Black American is another term I hear, where it's like essentially you're Black and your descendants literally were American slaves, North American, particularly the United States of America, not necessarily the Caribbean. So there was some consternation when we were trending Blacks for Yang, because honestly, this debate came from when we helped trend Blacks to Yang. We got like number 5 trending, or even maybe number 4 or higher on Twitter, and like a lot of people were upset from ADOS who were like, let's be real. On Twitter, most of the Yang Gang were not Black, so a lot of the people trending this hashtag were not Black. So what happened was like, Blacks, these people who are these white and Asian people. That's some pretty messed up comments about like Asian infiltration. Because I think like Paget, maybe some other people had retweeted the stuff. So people were like, well, who are these Asian women? Who are these people tweeting Black for Yang? And Blacks, you know.
People, remember when they were talking about all the alt-right people are Yang supporters? It's like,
oh
yeah, don't even get me started on that one. That was like the first rendition of this type of logic. Where it's like, wait a second, what about us sitting here? So it's like the whole thing with ADOS, like we kind of had some clashes where some of it was good conversation, but it was still very intense, where they were like, essentially, universal basic income is going to be, basically they said without anything else, that would worsen the racial wealth gap. I mean, what I respect about ADOS is that they were very kind of like, they were very focused. It wasn't so much the reactionary, knee-jerk stuff that you can sometimes see from certain liberal media about, like you said, the alt-right support or other things about why Yang. Oh, he called someone. Anyway, there's so many ridiculous things.
When they keep it simple, he's just pandering, y'all.
But I think like the conversations with ADOS, like, okay, so to answer a question down there, and this will link into it, ADOS 101, so ADOS101.com.
Mm-hmm.
That is sort of like their homepage of what their agenda is. What is the Black agenda? And a lot of Black people, ADOS people, were advocating if you not have a Black agenda, which includes full funding of HBCUs, reparations is a big one. I guess like land grants. There's like so many things that basically said need to be done to rewrite the wrongs of slavery, Jim Crow, everything that's happened since Jim Crow that's also been wrong, like redlining, and other things. Mm-hmm. And so they basically said Yang had like a score of maybe 1 or 2 out of 10. And like, I mean, shoot, they even gave Trump a score just for the HBCU reform. And also, there are certain things about ADOS where they're not as in favor of immigrants, because not that they're anti-immigrant, but what they say the Democratic Party does, they'll give every immigrant group priority and every interest group priority over Black people. And so they'll basically say how the Democrats will never do anything specifically for Black people. You hear a lot of people say like Obama never did anything for Black people, a lot of ADOS type people. So that conversation can go much deeper, and you can watch, like, I think Cloud Anderson on the Black Breakfast Club literally called Obama a joke with his Powernomics, saying Obama didn't do anything and the racial wealth gap got worse under his administration. And so there's a lot of like these people who are very focused specifically on, and okay, fair enough, they're their own block of people, they have a different experience than someone like me, who I was born here but my parents are immigrants, similar to you. Like it is a different upbringing, it's a different experience.
It is, yeah.
But
for sure,
so I don't necessarily fault them for trying to like look out for their interests, but sometimes I feel like there are things that would like substantially move forward these communities, like if Yang had gotten into office and these policies were passed, or even outside of Yang, there's other things where they might not support because the language isn't exactly in the mold of ADOS or FBA or whatever. But again, I'm not ADOS, and so I need to do more research into it. But that's kind of why we had some clashes, is because they were kind of like, looking at the policies and we're basically saying this is not reparations, which we never claimed it was. um, they were also saying, like, I guess certain things just were not as strongly advocated for. And so I think in 2021 and 2022, you're going to see more ADOS people being more vocal. I mean, during the pandemic, you already kind of saw some people talking a lot. Every group was talking a lot after the protests, but I think you're going to see a lot more of people trying to like advocate for themselves and sort of disassociate from the Democrats. Thank you, MCOY Count, for putting that in there.
That's cool.
And Mindful Skeptics, the last thing I was going to say, thank you for adding, your comments there. Cool that you talked with some people, because that's not at all like, that's a very brave, courageous thing, because they, like you said, it's very intense. And I mean, they know their stuff. They're very, like, it's not like a trolling type conversation. Like, you're going to be talking about substantial stuff if you're talking with an ADOS person, but sometimes it can be very intense, and you do have to have some, like, to be willing to step out there and put yourself out there can be a lot. Like, I think some people just don't touch the conversation, especially some like Black people in the media or Black people who are in positions of power. So I feel like it is important though to like understand where they're coming from. So, and then for the Santons, that would be cool.
Yeah, that would. Give me a week ahead of time so I can make sure I have the right questions for them.
Dope. Yes.
Right. Oh, there was another question. That I saw. I think we answered this one, but it was this one. Remember he did talk to MCOY probably just in reference to Andrew Yang. I just remember a screenshot of you guys having a call with him. Were there any discussions on racial issues then? Just curious. A lot of those, a lot, that discussion and many more discussions. Yes, it was because of the fact that when you looked at his policy page, it didn't say, exclusively, or didn't have anything on this page exclusively that said this is the Black agenda, this is what the new Black deal. It didn't say that in there. He wrote his page in a way where if you were of a reasonable person, meaning that you were able to kind of like reason with yourself and kind of use your own judgment and your own critical thinking and say what he was saying, a lot of his policies really did hit home with Black people. It did. And the one thing we said was we wish you could have kind of said that more and kind of be a little bit more vocal about it, because that there in itself, the messaging is there in itself. Yes, that would have worked. You hear how many, Black women who go to the hospital and get turned away because their diagnosis wasn't legitimate enough for them. And it's not even just like, your ordinary, hardworking 9-to-5 Black women. No, we got celebrities who are Black who got money, got turned away. I remember reading an article about Gabrielle Union and how she almost lost her baby because the doc. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I heard about Serena Williams. I didn't know about Gabrielle. She was a surrogate.
Huh?
I could have sworn Gabrielle had a surrogate.
Something.
Okay, go on. Sorry.
But there was a baby, but I know. Okay, so Serena Williams died with too, but you guys could look it up. But I remember reading an article about Gabrielle Union and how she was going through a medical issue that she got turned away. And as she was going on explaining what was happening, she went to a different doctor and had a second opinion. And the doctor said, "Oh no, we got to get you in now." Because we got to get you in now, because had this lingered, it would have cost you dearly. And she talked about that. And it's clear as day that the healthcare reform and the healthcare policy that Andrew was pointing to push, it didn't have to say Black women specifically, but if you thought about it and you read the thinking and you thought about what he was targeting, it was Black women, Black mothers, Black women who have children that are special needs, that area, especially those single moms who need adequate health care and health insurance to make sure that not only are they themselves are taken care of, but their children are taken care of, And so a lot of the things that he outlined, again, they didn't have the fancy Black agenda price tag on there, but if you looked at it, you thought about it, yeah, it was hitting home. It hit home for Black folks anywhere who could think about it. Like, yeah, I can see that happening in my neighborhood. Yeah, I can see that because I know somebody that's locked up on a trumped up drug charge that really the only thing he had was a nick bag on him. He's away locked up in the county for like 5-10 years. Come on. And again, that would have helped a lot. A whole lot. And so, that messaging, like pitch it the way that Black folks can understand and be more receptive to it and be like, okay, I get what you're saying now. I see what you're saying. I see what you're trying to do. Then, yes, I will vote for you. Or yes, I will at least support you, and at least get that idea out. And even if you didn't win, just knowing that you arguably had one of the most progressive ideas out of any presidential candidate, period. Yeah, I can stand by that.
Yeah. And, he was always hovering around 2, 3, 4% in the polls. I wasn't expecting him to, suddenly clobber Joe and Bernie and make it all the way. But those ideas are out there. And, I've been looking at this Hill Harris X poll on UBI, and about 2 years ago, it was at about 43%, and then kind of crept up to the mid 40s, and it's 55% now, especially with the pandemic and how popular our little $1,200 checks were. So that in itself is a win for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely in the forefront being spoken about more. Yang is liked a lot more, like in the politics subreddit, which is like the biggest political subreddit. I want to say there's others.
Sure,
the biggest, and it's leans left, like left, center left. Yang was never mentioned at all. It was mainly just Bernie being mentioned in the politics subreddit. But now I see Yang being mentioned a lot more, which is nice. Like people are learning about Yang and liking a lot more, and they're seeing his point, and they see he's just here to help people. He's not full of shit.
Yeah, and he knows it's kind of not about him. It's about just good ideas to make things better. Ranked choice voting, so you don't have to, have Democrats. They'll have to pander for a vote in a different way, to get that second vote if they have ranked choice voting. It's about another one I really liked was like because I lived in the DC area for a while, was relocating a lot of federal agencies in different parts of the country. If you ever been to DC, it's like really congested all the time. Like watching the Department of Agriculture be in Nebraska, the CDC is already in Atlanta,
That's true.
I always like, and it's just kind of seeing those ideas. It seems like ranked choice voting is catching on, and UBIs have been catching on, so no matter what Andrew Yang does, I think a lot of that stuff's in the mainstream now, and that's kind of the whole point of it.
Yeah. No, it's like Yang is definitely like more popular than I was expecting, which is great. I'm glad that he didn't just kind of fade off into obscurity like Michael Bennett or or Ryan. But yeah, like I definitely think even though he lost, it was still like a massive win.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I would have liked to vote for him in Michigan. He dropped out before I got a chance to have him on the ballot. But
he was on the ballot. He was on the Michigan ballot. He was on the Michigan ballot for the primaries. That part, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, but he had dropped out by then. So
yeah, but
see, if we ranked choice voted, we wouldn't have to waste our vote.
Yeah.
Right. In Michigan, Michigan was a pretty big state because I don't know how people feel about like the rest of the candidates after Yang dropped out, but the pandemic had just started or was getting ready to like shut everything down. and I know Bernie needed to win that state. So Michigan had a lot of influence. Whatever way you lean towards Bernie, towards Biden, you kind of may have felt more empowered to use the vote there to do something with those two candidates, or even, God, I don't think Bloomberg dropped out by then. And anyway, Bloomberg
Tulsi
is
was
not
still around, but, you
Yeah.
know, that would have been a waste of vote too.
Yeah. Now looking at this chat again.
It's getting live again. Thank you guys. We appreciate. Yeah, I still vote. Yeah,
I voted for him too. I voted for him in Florida in March.
I voted in Massachusetts.
Yeah,
now,
I did it. I did it to see the numbers because I figured it's like Joe Biden's, gearing up to win anyway, so like it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. And Florida was another big one that was pretty early in March, where it was like Bernie really also needed to win that state. So like there were some interesting things to watch. Like I voted Yang in the Massachusetts primary. That was on Super Tuesday, so it was not even that far after he had dropped out. And I literally switched my registration from Maryland because I grew up in Maryland. So DMV, Nick.
Okay, what part of Maryland?
Salisbury first, and then
Waldorf City. Yeah, okay.
Waldorf is where my family lives. I'm actually gonna go home this week on Friday.
I lived in
to go back.
Laurel for a while when I was in DC, so the whole other side of the
Yeah, man. I know about Laurel, Lanham, and all of that. I have so many family friends out in PG and Howard County, and all the rest of it, Moco. But I switched my registration to Massachusetts literally on the day that Yang dropped out. It was that Tuesday, because I think Wednesday was the deadline, February 12th. So I was like, New Hampshire primary. I just decided to use that day to get my registration up to date so I could vote in. Because I could have voted absentee in Maryland, but it felt more important to switch to Massachusetts for Super Tuesday. And then Mans dropped out. So I still went. I went and voted on March 3rd. Funny thing, though, is that I just assumed the state was going to go to Bernie or Warren. I did not expect Biden to come out of nowhere. $0 of ad money and like campaign money spent in that state. Like the fact that Biden didn't even want all these states. Anyway, different conversation. But
water under the bridge.
I was
rid of Trump.
Yeah. So I could have done that in Massachusetts. I could have done like the Mass easily, and it did. It went like 66% Biden to 33 Trump. But I don't know. I felt I just didn't know if that was. I was like, what should I really do? What should I do? I just decided.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Whoa!
Oh snap! We got a legend.
Oh, nerd.
Oh, nerds. We have a legend in the house.
Wow.
Good to see you, man.
I love it. Oh. This makes my heart warm. We got all these people on here. I love it.
Yeah, Trevor, it's good to see you too. I've seen your tweets here and there.
Oh man, yeah. This is an awesome night, you guys.
It is.
Not much.
Yeah.
Nothing much.
We've been
Here we go.
talking, chatting.
There we go.
Yes. Yes.
Possibly, yeah. Arguably, Press secretary, arguably. Give it to him. Yeah.
Press secretary.
It would have been so interesting to see it, and not to make people feel too sad, but what would a Yang cabinet and like?
Yeah, it would be.
And all these
Tulsi, Secretary of State, and then wars.
I voted for Yang, Mark. I figured it was going to Biden anyway. I did it to just see the numbers afterwards, just to see how many people voted for Yang anyway.
Yeah, I did. There were quite a few, like tens of thousands.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't actually see the numbers of like different write-in candidates for the general, like at all. I have no idea.
I think Yang got third place in Georgia in the primaries, which I believe so. It was somewhere like that.
There was some states where Yang got like, it was weird. I think New Mexico, he did well because he already had a lot of support out there, even though they voted in like June. And I think Hawaii, I don't remember what other states, but there were some states where you're right. Georgia did really well, and I was so surprised because that was deep in the pandemic. It was like June, I think.
Yeah, they postponed it and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh man. Yang team up with
MPP.
MPP.
I don't know.
Yeah, you know.
I don't know who that is.
What is that? I probably, if you say it, I'm probably gonna recognize it, but I can't think.
I was gonna say I know what OPP is. Yeah, you know me. You got OPP. Yeah, you know me.
All right. Old school.
Yes. Gotta go with my old school hip hop. Yeah.
Of course.
Yes. But again, you know, moving on. Let's shift gears just a tad bit. Moving for a People's Party. Boom. There we go.
Oh, the People's Party. Yeah, that's a pretty big, growing organization.
Yes.
Hey.
Love it, Tom.
Oh,
People's Party.
Yeah, the People's Party was cool. Yeah, I didn't watch the convention, to be honest. Maybe I should have, but Nina Turner, I mean, she's running for Congress now, and she was a pretty big voice at the People's Party.
It's gonna be nice to have her there.
Yeah. Yes. It's funny because like there's a lot of like Bernie-esque people. Like for me, I was very much like anyone and everybody from every background who has similar ideas that we can collaborate, we can. So I never got into spats with Bernie people. I never got into spats with really anyone, to be honest. And like I'm glad for people like Nina Turner. You know, I'm in Mass, so like Ayanna Presley, you know, huge respect to her out in the Boston area doing her thing. So
yeah, we got Rashida Tlaib in Michigan, so
right, and she apparently has a lot of support there. Like it wasn't even like a controversial thing for the party to support her for re-election. Like it was a little bit of controversy for like Ilhan Omar in Minnesota. AOC got a little bit of establishment primaries happening, but like Rashida Tlaib, I read an article where it said that she really won the confidence of her district and the local Michigan, I guess, Democratic Party.
What's going on, Trumper for Yang?
Trumper for Yang. Oh, this is huge. We have every single channel and podcast on here. What is going on?
Well, just about. We
Trumper for Yang's cool.
We need Mark Skidmore. Or Matt Skidmore.
Oh yeah, the Matt Skidmore show and Paget.
What happened? Zach and Matt show? Matt.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to Zach, but
yeah.
I don't know, but that's the place where you always get the video first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, they've always been they were like when it comes to like the fix, the Matt show was like where I really needed to, because that's where all the interviews were. I watched everyone. I watched Kai, I watched Paget, but like everyone is just great, and I can't wait. See, this is great because this is like right around the holidays, and we're having a whole holiday party right now. And we literally are having Christmas themed episodes and New Year's themed episodes on the next few weeks. Mm-hmm. So this is like a pre-family time before the holidays when we then have.
Yes. I mean, this is awesome. This is great, you guys. This is great because originally what I was going to do was going to switch gears, but a little bit. But chat, what we're going to do is if there's any other questions that you guys want to ask us, and especially in related to tonight's episode, please feel free to blow it up in the chat. We're going to answer those because obviously we understand that being a part of Gang, it's massive, it's big, you know. And there's sometimes that we may miss some things. We may Tom's here too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For Yang.
Tom is nurse for Yang.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we want to kind of like engage with you guys because you guys been here with us for the longest time. You guys been running with us, and so we want to set a time aside. Answer any questions from the chat because this is all about it. It's about all of us, and we would love to support. We love supporting anybody who's gang and doing some kind of content creator, whether you got a podcast going, whether you're doing something in community, me and the homie boys, and shout out to Kevin Lee. I know he's probably not on here right now, but shout out to him. Yeah, we got some things cooking. Nick here too. We got some things cooking in Michigan, and it's looking marvelous. oh, it's looking marvelous. I can't wait. Because there's some things going on in here. Yeah, we're just ready. Boom. Deep fighting cabinet.
I've been
that one last week.
I've been thinking about that one. Hold on, let me see. There's so much happening. This is like overload. It's a good overload.
Remember, I brought the one about the cabinet position over NYC. I don't know. I don't know exactly if Joe's offering him something and there's like too many constraints, and that's why he's saying I'd rather run for NYC mayor. You know, like you were saying last week, Ron. Whatever he decides to do is, you know, there's probably a lot of aspects of that decision that those of us just don't know about. So he's just gonna do what he does.
Exactly.
But I'd rather see Secretary of Commerce because he could have it set it up where we're looking at the right numbers, looking at life expectancy as opposed to GDP, you know, looking at participation and levels of participation in employment instead of that, you know, whatever crappy statistics that has unemployment that Donald Trump keeps bragging about, you know, where it's like you do 2 Uber rides and you're considered employed type of thing, you know, have the right employment numbers, you know, have the right mental health numbers, have the right physical health numbers. And as Secretary of Commerce, those statistics will be more on point if he's running the Commerce Department. So I'd rather see him do that than be NYC mayor. But like I said, I don't know what's all involved with that. And I think Mayor Pete is out in the cabinet, so.
Yeah, transportation. Though I would never have expected or wanted Ying to have that role anyway for transportation. That was such a random one because he was offered the Office of Budget Management and he was offered another one, VA. But apparently people say that that's like really a dead end. Even important. It's important. Like if you want to make a difference, be the Secretary of VA is good. But he wanted something more public facing. I don't know if transportation is that.
Well, but one of the thing on his platform was to open this thing that they used to have back in the 90s called the Office of Technology Assessment. And it shut down in 95 by Newt Gingrich and all those silly people from back then. And one of his plans is to reopen that. If Joe gave him a gig to reopen that, that would be pretty cool. And that would be a better way for us to, like, you know, monitoring how we're dealing with being on screen so much and make sure that AI is in control and make sure those statistics on automation are really being tracked and all that. So I'd always thought that would be a good role for him.
There was actually an advocacy call that Humanity Forward had, I think last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, and they were saying, you know, they kind of were talking about the different options that Yang could have. And I know Zach, because Zach was the one sort of highlight, he was the first one introducing, and he was basically saying, if he got a cabinet position, just keep in mind it is much less public. Just like Andrew Yang for Press said, you're going to be more silenced. You're not going to really have as much of that media exposure to say whatever you want because you are a secretary in the cabinet. So you essentially are doing you're
working for Joe.
You're working for Joe, exactly. And I mean, if you can make a big impact and do things for the country, sure. But you know, you're just not going to have as much of this grassroots energy that we have right now. And it kind of leads to what do we even want as the gang, as the Yang gang? What is the goal? But Yang is his own man, of course. But we're all sort of in this together. We literally did get him to where he is. So,
The only thing about the New York thing, you kind of make a point, Trevor, for Yang. How much would financial transaction tax on Wall Street, how much UBI could he generate for all of New York just by picking little pennies from every Wall Street transaction? He might have a plan for that, so who knows?
That'd be interesting.
You know, and I look at it like this too. You know, and Nick's right. I said this last week that Yang is his own man, and Yang is grown, and he's going to make whatever decision he wants to make. And at the end of the day, you know, whatever he does is like, okay, we may not understand it, you know, as of right now, but obviously he has a long-term game that he's working on. And sometimes some of the moves he makes is like, but then again, when we when we think about it, it's like, okay, it didn't make sense at the time, but now how things are rolling out, okay, we get it. We see it now. We see how this kind of flows, and especially when he was talking about, trying to get the UBI pass, even during his campaign, he talked about it. A lot of people laughed at him. Here we are in the middle of pandemic, out of the whole time we've been here, we've only had one stimulus check, only one, and it's close to the holiday season. A lot of people, they still are either one, they're out of a job, just looking for a job.
Or you can't even blame those conservatives who are like, I'm opening my business, I don't care what you think. And it's like, well, they kind of have a point. You don't do anything to help them.
Exactly.
Right. LA, they just saw what happened in LA where that woman had to close her business, but then right next door, the film company was able to open because California is going to prioritize the film industry, which brings in most of its revenue. And it's like you can't help everyone, so we're just going to help the people that we know and who give us the most money and screw the small businesses. In California, I think the opposite is true. Bars and restaurants open because that's what brings a lot of their money. But then they close certain other industries. And so it's just a mess where it's like favoritism that decides which industries stay open, in which people get sidelined. And it's just really bad.
Yeah. And Chad, you guys are making excellent points.
Oh, yeah, good point, Trevor.
Yeah,
if it is just on Wall Street, that makes sense.
Yeah. And go ahead, Elle.
And I agree. It doesn't like UBI doesn't have to be the only thing. I know that Yang was something like a little scorecard or to see like how your kids are doing, how everybody's doing in the family, how are you feeling? Like that could be something that could be easily implemented.
Oh yeah,
human-centered capitalism. I don't know, like kind of semantics, but yeah.
Right. He could try to make the area more green. He could try to, work towards, like ranked choice voting, like what Andrew Yang for Prez was saying. Like he could do democracy dollars. That could be something like that.
True.
Like there's like a whole other ton of things.
Yeah,
we could try.
There is something though that, like with New York City, and I think I actually am, and I'm a little bit in alignment with Trump for Yang, where New York City, there's a lot of problems. And like I watched the Rising morning show, they kind of did a breakdown of sort of a lot of problems New York City has, from unions that basically you have to advocate for. You have a lot of city politics that are just really grimy and really pay for play, really, I don't want to say mafia-like, but there's like a lot of like old remnants of old political New York machines that are still there in New York City. You have all these groups like the progressives in New York. You have the Black community. You have the police. So here's the thing: like Bill De Blasio right now is widely considered just not. He's just not it. Like Black people don't like him. Progressives don't like him. The police definitely don't like him. So it's like you're winning no one. You're winning no groups. So it's like, how do you manage all these different groups for one city, the biggest city, the hardest job in the country, which has often been said, as an outsider, where you get to bring these fresh perspectives and these policies, but then you do have to like have these sort of city politics. You have to like know who to call. You have to like be able to, have the relation with the governor as well.
He's never. No, he's like.
Oh,
I could blow up Trump's Twitter, and it's probably just some crybaby about fraud.
I never if I see a tweet, it's by chance or someone is retweeting something or other. I have other things I have to do than watch this man.
The last one, tremendous evidence pointing in on voter fraud. There's never been anything like this in this country.
Wonderful.
I have muted or whatever where it doesn't show up. So even if somebody retweets something, like I don't see. It's like,
oh, you don't.
I don't want to. Like, there's been way too many times when I would see something. I'd wake up in the middle of the night or see some shit he retweeted and fearing for my life. It's like I don't need that stress in my life.
Yeah.
Exactly. His ego won't allow it.
I mean, I don't think he will probably like formally concede. He'll probably go the long way about it. Like, I never lost, or this never happened, and blah blah blah. But you know, the Trump, not the Trump, but the Biden administration is going to blah 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 blah. Like, okay, so do you concede, or
he's never
he's
gonna.
change
not really going
some other
to?
things and saying that
Yeah.
stolen from him and this and that, and that's just what he's going to keep that until the day he dies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you, Trumper for Yang.
Agreed.
New York is a mess, man.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think it's a lot. Like, it's a lot, and I think having Humanity Forward become sort of this. They said the NRA level of influence, but positive. And having sort of like the fight for 15. In fact, what Trumper for Yang said is so on point that you have all these ballot initiatives, and so you can basically push and be like this. I mean, you don't have to be single issue, but you can at least have a few core of the issues. The data privacy is fine. UBI is huge. Ranked choice voting really needs to be on the top, and even like drug decriminalization. Like partnering with other organizations for drug decrim and marijuana legalization, that would be huge. Basically, all these sort of issues that can be done on the ballot that are very pro society and pro democracy. Because government reform is one of his top things. Like, it wasn't always talked about, but he ranked next to Bernie with government reform. They were the only two who had an A score by equal citizens. So I think having that sort of role and keeping Humanity Forward extremely strong, showing that they can produce results, which so far, I remember the article just came out about how the lobbying has so far pushed some senators and mostly Congress people to introduce more bills. That's good. It might not be as glamorous, but it is very grassroots and it's very hands-on in terms of building these links from each state.
Yes.
Creating new Humanity Forward chapters, getting every community involved in the state, trying to link them up, and then keep pushing these issues. Because UBI just basically needs to become mainstream. A lot of these other things need to become mainstream out of the think tanks into the communities. And I think that might be the most powerful play. New York City, man, I don't know how I feel about that. I'm definitely leaning against it. Like, unless like there's going to be something really transformational done.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, you're right, Trevor. But with COVID, we're turns out Yang was right about a lot of things. I think more people are realizing that.
Yeah.
He reside in Hell's Kitchen. I don't know. I'm not stalking him.
I think he's upstate. I think he's upstate to New York.
He grew up in upstate New York, I think.
Yeah. He lives in the city. But yeah, so that's where his campaign office was as well, and Humanity Forward operates.
He was running a VFA out of there too. So.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Great chat. Great chat.
Yeah.
Really good. Yeah, thank you, Nick, as well. Yeah. And this conversation is continuing. I guess if you are gonna, because that's the thing, New York City is one of those jobs though where it doesn't really get used as a stepping stone. Like, it is like the job. Like, you go into that role, it is your life. I mean, could you run for a president? Obviously, we did have
3 of them have. Giuliani run before.
Giuliani did run.
Both Bloomberg and De Blasio ran this time and went absolutely nowhere.
And Bloomberg not making anywhere is probably the biggest indictment. Granted, this man definitely waited till the last minute. But it's still the pretty big indictment that is like, I just feel like your political career is dead. So you have to really love the job and love essentially why you're doing it. And yeah, he's a New Yorker, so that's fine if he really has a part there. I know Charlemagne the God, Breakfast Club, the most recent interview, Charlemagne was like, "Man, Yang, we need you. Seriously, think about us." And I felt like that was pretty big because like Charlemagne's a guy who asks tough questions. He's not necessarily the one who's always the most buddy, but like he really had that huge, like, you could tell that he liked Yang and that he really wanted him to continue doing some good work. So if Yang wants to do that, that's up to him. And
it's up to him.
Yeah.
I believe he'll do the best that he can possibly do. He'll be able to step up above the others.
Granted, it would be a good experience for him, but I don't know. It would just be a massive shit show that he would probably be blamed for if he doesn't fix it to tip top shape, even though it'll be out of his control.
Yes. And again, the one thing that did he announce yet? I don't think he announced yet. I know he's still down in Georgia putting in some work down there still.
Yeah.
So who knows? And I think that NYC as a full-time gig might limit him on Yang Speaks and Humanity Forward. Granted, true. And so I'm looking like this, and I might be the only other person who might think this way, but I think Andrew does better outside than inside because a lot of the things that he's got done and the things he's got accomplished, he's done from pretty much outside of the political realm of games, and so he made it known, like, listen, we're since Congress is kicking rocks and whatnot, we're going to go ahead, we're going to raise this money, we're going to send out micro grants to families all over who need it because we realize they need it. They need the money. They need it like right then and there, no questions asked. And so you have that. You have, again, with Humanity Forward, trying to build up these statehood chapters that are going on. Again, it's trying to get people to get reorganized, re-energized, and focus on the issues that actually matter the most, and let people know that there's another way. There's a better way. And if we can come together and get ranked choice voting on our ballots, and especially in the states that can get it done and actually get it passed, great, let's do it, And even if we add on, if some way we can do, like, have mayors run UBI trials, and show the record, like, it works. We should be able to do this. A lot of stuff we don't really need the federal government to do. We don't. A lot of stuff we don't necessarily need state level to do. However, as long as we have the documentation showing that it works, and as long as, again, we pitch it in a way where, like, listen, here's what's going on. Here's what we can do to kind of help out our citizens, because obviously the Fed, they care less about us. Let's run our show our way. Let's do it this way, and let's get this thing done because people need it, and you could take that all the way up to the state level, and boom, you possibly could get UBI done state by state. And then once the majority of the states have adopted UBI on a state level, then you trickle that up to the national level, it's going to fly through because, like, okay, the states, they've been doing it by themselves for the longest time. It works. Why not just make it a federal mandate and just pass it on and keep it going? And again, how this all going to ties in is because with all that money circling around, it's going to cut out the need of, oh, we don't have the money for it. No, the states have proven that yes, there's money there. We just gotta put in the legwork to go get it and find it, accolade it, and then redistribute it. Boom, we're good. Yeah. There's no other way around.
Folks in Alaska can attest to it. So
exactly. With the Alaska dividend, even though I've done the research, it may not be a lot. But at the same time, given the fact that what they're going through right now, it's more what they got right now than what they probably didn't have, So if Alaska, again, who's very Republican.
Yeah, Sarah Palin actually raised it when she was there. So
it's possible. It's possible. What do you think of the odds going?
I think it's going to be higher.
Yeah. It'll obviously just be her. I could just see if we can get out of midterms in good shape. I could see Joe saying, yeah, I'm not doing 4 years. And I don't know. It wouldn't make much sense to try to run against Kamala in the primary.
Yeah, that is like, I remember someone tweeted, I don't know if it was Matt and Zach's show, but someone tweeted a few weeks ago that if Kamala does get the nomination in 2024, Yang will immediately be called a sexist and everything, like by people who explicitly are weaponizing that term, or a racist, whatever. He's running against a black woman. How dare she? How dare he?
Just
like there will be
let her
people
do
who explicitly will just not, like, in good faith at all, look at a run in 2024. And there's people who are just so they're like, it's just enema, whatever the word is, but like they're completely against any like Democrat challenging the primary. And obviously we were a bit different. For a lot of us, like, we wouldn't care. We would say, yeah, screw the duopoly. But there's going to be so many mainstream Dem voters who are just like, we got rid of Trump. We can't do anything to splinter the party. And they'll use that excuse every time. They'll use it. They'll use it in 8 years. They'll use it every midterm because it's too important this election to splinter the party. But it is a really massive challenge to try to get around that dynamic and how to like take away the sort of next in line politics that has basically been a mainstay of both parties, honestly.
Well, Jeb Bush can get next in line, so whatever.
you said, oh, Bush, Jeb Bush.
But I don't know. When I saw Kamala and Mike debating, I just figured, this might not be the last time we see them go at each other. So,
yeah, I mean, true. But again, let's see what do you mean? Yeah.
So this is terms. Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah. I mean, Andrew, what Trumper said, like, Andrew is not going to, not even just like the odds, like that's not something I could see him do. He did say that 2024 was something he had an eye for, but now that, Biden has won for sure, Biden is not gonna, I don't know what this 4 years are gonna look like, but the idea of Biden like being the nominee for 2024 to me just is ridiculous. Like, I'm pretty sure most people know in their head that this man is not going to decide to run all, or if he does, he's not going to finish out the second term. But I seriously doubt him really running in 2024 as an 82-year-old man, or 83 maybe.
Yeah.
I think it'd be 82, 81, 82.
Yeah. I mean, there was a point there that Trevor made. How did Biden get the Dem non South Carolina? Can't imagine Kamala, the first woman VIP, not to be 2024 down the Democratic nomination. I mean,
yeah,
and I think it's kind of locked up. It'll be really interesting to see kind of just what happens to conservatism in general. How, like, if Trump starts a TV channel, how much attention is going to be paid to that, and time will tell.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Time will tell, and I look at it like this. Once Joe gets inaugurated, and then once he figures out who's in his cabinet, once they get established, I think the first 2 years are probably going to be the telltale sign of what could happen in 2024. And a lot could happen. A lot could happen within the next 2 years, let them know the next 4 years. A lot could happen. And there's no telling, even if let's just say, even if Biden steps down after 1 year, of being in office, he steps down because mentally he can't take it. Okay, you got Kamala who comes in and finishes off the remainder. Then if she decides I want to run for president in 2024, it's like, okay, here we go. Let's see what's going to happen. We don't know. But for the most part, I think, in my opinion, I think it'll be interesting to watch to see what could happen, what the possibilities might happen, and how the country as a whole would kind of look like it, and what things have been progressed over the next 2 years, over the next 4 years. And if things are still crappy as they are, who knows? If things are better than what they are, again, who knows? But one thing I can say is this: we still gonna be around until something else weird happens. We're still gonna be around. So
When something good happens, how would the people know? I know that sounds stupid, but I feel like with social media propaganda and everything, like someone can give you, like cheap healthcare or a free car, and they probably won't even know. They'll just think it's socialism or something.
Yeah,
or something exaggerating. But
again, I get you.
Yeah,
And
that's my biggest worry. It's just good things may happen and nobody will even realize that.
True, so true, and and I think that the way we will also get the bat signal. Yeah, agreed. And I look at it like this too. I think the mindset in has to change somehow, some way, and perspectives will have to change, and possibly just like willing to try something new, and understanding that the same old tactics has been the same old tactics. They have not worked. They've done more harm than good. Try something different. Will it be scary? Yes. I think you said it last week. Will it put people out their comfort zone? Yes. But at the same time, by being outside of your comfort zone, it forces you to grow. And so by doing that, I think that will cause people to be uncomfortable and want to grow and want to change and want to progress and want to bring new ideas. And again, that in itself could be a whole slew of another topic. But again, we don't know. We don't know. What could be? I mean, Chad, y'all been going at, y'all been doing it. Yes.
Yeah, there's some very different ideas here in the chat, and I feel like this reflects what I've already seen you guys say on Twitter too. But it's really interesting to see it all here at once. I know the forward party was a big thing. Like people, as soon as they dropped out, it was like, okay, there needs to be this party. Especially like when the pandemic first hit, it was like, what are we gonna do? Forward party, Dark Horse Duo. No, that thing died out by Lord knows.
William McRaven. I'm sure he just wants to be bothered by everyone, right?
Yeah. Would have been quite the pair, but it's like we know that I know Genie, Genie Shinobi. He literally, I think his bio was like the revolution is happening in the down ballot. And I was like, yes. So that is exactly what needs to happen. Is really getting that support, because I mean we didn't have much time to do it now during a pandemic. By 2022, we really hope that things are normal enough where you can expect the in-person campaigning, the events, all the things that generate enthusiasm. I mean, Jermaine Johnson, he won. Some other people won, but there are many people who are handicapped, like people who I think would have done really well, like Briones and other people who probably could have won if they were able to have the in-person campaigning. So that is should be
Blair in Tennessee, Blair Washington.
I
mean, there's a lot that's going to happen in the next few years. There's a lot of coalition building that I do agree needs to happen. Because a lot of people are sort of living in different worlds. It made me happy to see a bunch of Bernie supporters who do watch Yang Speaks, or in general seem to still like be curious about Yang related things. It wasn't just the crap show that we saw on Twitter during the primary. You actually have people who are interested in working together. I think K-Hive is one that, and K-Hive has actually been in one group because I mentioned ADOS, but K-Hive in particular, probably it makes me the most upset when I see them talk about Yang, because they just have like nothing but like flames and anger, and I'm like, no. Like a lot of them are so like pro-black, pro this, that, to see like a big faction like that consider Yang to be anti-black. And I know this kind of goes back to the topic of how is it like to be black in the Yang gang. Sometimes you've had to contend with like K-Hive, which is Kamala Harris supporters in the primary, who of course became much bigger when she got the VP nod. Seeing like K-Hive and all these people really drag Yang, even when Yang was in Georgia knocking on doors, And literally there was someone who retweeted saying like, this is what like they told you socialist clowns not to do. And it's like, wait, I know, first of all, he's not socialist. Second
Martin
of all,
Luther King the third is out there knocking on doors with him.
Yes, MLK. Yeah, and literally he had an event with him and Warnock. I'm pretty sure were together at one point. So it's just like people have like this bias that it's been a little bit hard to shake from some groups, but the K Hive is pretty influential online, and they're gonna get bigger and more empowered and more mainstream now that Kamala is VP. And so if you can't make inroads with sort of that more traditional, like they're very, very establishment Dem type people. A lot of them loved Hillary Clinton, and a lot of them wanted her to run again in 2020. As much as that sounds, and whatever. I mean, I voted for Clinton. Whatever. I'm not really here to bash her, but the point is, there's like a very different mindset of a lot of those types of establishment-minded Black voters who support people like Kamala, who support Clinton. And if you can't make inroads with a lot of them, you're also kind of dead on water in the future. And so it's a lot of managing these different identities and worlds in order to kind of make those inroads in the people who are going to actually vote, because these people will show up and vote. I mean, Kamala didn't make it to the primary, but that type of voter in general is like the Biden voter, the people who showed out in South Carolina, Arkansas, Alabama, all the states, and Super Tuesday. And that's a big focus that has to happen as well. There has to be some kind of like coalition of like Yang support in a lot of these traditional Black community strongholds. So that's another thing that I think about a lot is how does that get built? Because it can't just be like sort of the Yang Twitter world and all this. It has to be mainstream again in these communities, which is why I'm glad that he and MLK the third have a great relationship. But I feel like that doesn't necessarily translate to everyone.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, keep humanity forward and candidates coming. You know, there's a lot of odd elections that happen that'll even be, next November. So, just keep your ear to the ground. Now, y'all got to get better at voting on local things, because I'm guilty of charge. I had to ask, my sister-in-law, like, who are these judges?
Bro, I'm with you, like, I think the one thing that I would suggest was, especially when it comes to the judges, to put them out early, like mail their stuff out early so we can kind of get an understanding of who they are, what they're trying to do, what they're trying to accomplish, like what is their end game, and see if we want those people presiding over us, and I like the idea of having more humanity forward candidates run for local races
or
like
state legislatures. I mean, that's something else overlooked too. Jermaine Johnson in South Carolina, he's going to be tearing the club up.
State legislatures are probably the most, and Ashley also talked about this, Ashley Shepard. That's like the most important. I didn't mean to cut you, Ron, but like state legislatures is where you actually can get policies passed on the ballot, and having that voice in Congress might be like the biggest possible, like one of the biggest.
Lost Toby. Told y'all
left us at a cliffhanger.
No worries. It's getting late.
Man.
My wife's ready to.
Yeah.
You've been going through.
So
yeah. The one thing I was going to say too was, you still trying to score that? What? Bro, I think you got the wrong channel, Doc.
Yeah.
Yo, tell me, you got the wrong channel. You got the wrong channel, bro. You on the wrong channel.
Yeah. I mean, read what it's entitled.
Yeah, nah, Doc.
But anyway, kind of like what Toby was saying.
Sorry, my thing just crashed on me again.
No worries.
I literally just called your name. One of the things that somebody messaged me was kind of like what Toby was saying about the K Hive. I don't know if they're specifically talking about the K Hive, but they were saying, when defending Yang to other Black people, they'd be called a coon for supporting him while trying to, prove he's not a white supremacist. It seems like it would be something the K Hive would probably do. Because I know that I felt like K Hive, from as little as I saw of them, I didn't really interact with like other people really. But it seemed like they were very like pro-black, if I'm not mistaken.
Extremely, yeah.
Yeah.
But their hatred. Who the K Hive actually hates by far the most is Bernie Sanders. Like, it's not even a question. Usually in the bios, you say block Bernie trolls, block Bernie bots. They never really mention Yang like that. So when it comes up, it's never really great. Yes, to be or not to be live streaming.
2024, just surrender to the K Hive. We'll worry about all that other stuff later.
Exactly. That's why it's like
I surrender.
It would be so funny and so poetic though if he did get a position where it's like now the K Hive is forced to see Yang in the Biden administration.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they would do, but I mean that's also not maybe the best motivation for trying to get.
Very cordial with each other throughout the campaign. So.
Yeah, no, like he considered Kamala an actual friend compared to and Cory Booker, same thing. Like he had actual friendships with them versus some other people.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah. True.
Yeah, right. I was going to add to what Toby was saying earlier is that we need a lot more to run for the local sheriffs and the local DA's offices as well, because those are two huge key races that I know I've seen in my county that go run unopposed, like for real, because of the fact that those two there, they kind of dictate what's done on a legal standpoint and how things are done legally, you know, and basically what Humanity Forward should do or ought to do is try to talk to people that are considering running for those offices and back them. You know, if they want to run for sheriff, back them. You know, that'll be huge. If they want to run for the DA's office, back them. Again, that'll be huge, because what that would do is that'll create a different wave of more progressive ideas and more reform on a grander scale than anything else, really. And again, my opinion, though, this is my opinion. And again, we've seen things be done the old-fashioned way. Sometimes it works, and then sometimes you need to update to the 21st century. That may have worked back then, maybe 50, 60 years ago, but as of right now, that's not really going to work. We need something new. We need some fresh ideas on the table. And I think running for those places or for those positions, that'd be key. And especially like county commissioners' offices, that'd be a huge one as well. You know, or even your city commissioner's office. Again, that'd be huge as well. And so I say for anybody that's watching, you know, and especially if you're a person of color, Black, who doesn't matter, run for those positions. Run for those positions. I know, you know, me and my skeptics, we talked. We're like, man, I know here in Michigan, they're going to be doing a bunch of redistricting. So we got to see and wait until the end of next year to figure out what's all going to be on a position. And I know it sucks. And if you know, things are divided up in a weird way, what's that going to look like? How is that going to affect those wanting to run, you know, and pretty much go from there. And also if there's a local or a statewide progressive like group that are like advertising stuff, look into it. That's another key wealth of information. I know here, Nick, you probably heard of them, the Great Lakes Progressive Association. I think that's what it is, GLPA.
You know,
they have a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of resources. They're always wanting to kind of like help people that are thinking about running for office. They have trainings that are geared towards doing that. And so if you're watching this and if you know of a progressive group that's there to kind of help and coach and to train you, or even if you just want some general information, I mean, get hooked up with them, and you learn a lot. I've learned a lot, a lot about what it takes to run a campaign, the ins and outs, the do's and the don'ts. And it's very, very influential. So again, check those out. Yep, Michigan Progressives. Yes, this is true. This is true. This is so true. So true. Because of the way how the districts are set up here, it could be flipped where, me and Mindful Skeptics, aka boys, we could be in the same district. And probably hopefully run for the same thing. And if I don't get in, he gets in. If he don't get in, I get in. And if we both get in, we tearing it up. Like we gonna tear it up for real. We are doing that. So that's that option, and keep in mind, and again, like Nick said, keep your ears on the ground. Always be on the lookout to listen of what you can do to run. Like
support people who are running.
That too.
Yeah.
That too. That's also key. So key. Because even if you can't like donate monetarily, donate your time. If you could phone bank. If you could text bank. If you could do canvassing, canvas. Do what you got to do. Get the name out there and everything else.
Yeah.
All right. So we are going to wind things down for a bit. Is there any final thoughts before we end this stream for tonight?
Some to chew on. If we have UBI and end poverty, will inequality still be a problem? Just chew on it. It's one I struggle with.
Say that again. If we have UBI, will inequality be some? Say that again, sorry.
Poverty is over because of UBI. Will inequality still matter? Just chew on it.
Okay.
If you know the answer to that question, you're a lot smarter than me. So
there was one thing that I wanted to share from messages that I got.
Yeah. Go for
it. So this person told me, while people were telling them that they were a successful POC, that they got lucky and they were lacking any self-awareness, that they had to work infinitely harder to succeed without their level of privilege. That was just like their experience in the Yang Gang from, I guess people on social media. Well, I guess they had to prove their legitimacy and be more transparent than I guess like their white counterparts, because this person would never be given the benefit of the doubt, which is annoying. I'll read it from their point of view. It's like I had to prove my legitimacy and be more transparent than them because I would never be given the benefit of the doubt, and worry constantly that people that wouldn't have had to even work half as hard as me to end up with twice as much would come after me to try to take from me, just like the good folks of Tulsa. But he also had a positive note. He said, the Yang Gang introduced me to people who would embrace new ideas and new voices and can actually make a difference with the gifts, which I agree.
Yeah.
One of the things I really appreciated with the Yang Gang.
We're not going to let Listen.
This has been we've had a lot of fun. Our streams have been getting progressively longer. Like if you just look at our YouTube page and see the videos, they used to be easily an hour to an hour 15, sometimes less than an hour. Then it started going to an hour and a half to 2 hours, and now we just don't even flinch when it hits 11 o'clock. It's like, 2 hours fast? Oh, bet. Let's do 2 more.
Oh goodness, I can't. My wife.
I can't do 2 more. I'd say 2 hours is.
But I do hope to get on with you guys again. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, Nick.
Yeah. And this is like a few of us started this, but it was meant to be sort of like, quote unquote counsel, people who wanted to share their experiences, melanated, we wanted to have this as a platform. We're not just the only three, we've had other people in the past. So thank you, Nick. And even like other people, if you want to message us offline and you're interested, because we want to be able to have a variety of voices and experiences shared, just because that wasn't something that we felt was often highlighted or prioritized during the campaign. And now we created this platform.
Yes,
cool.
Exactly. And again, yes, one day.
Hey, yes, Mark.
You're about to. I was gonna be excited.
There you go.
A fellow Floridian, because I'm just here holding.
Oh yeah. And Tatted as well needs to come on one day.
Yeah. In the one thing I can say, especially doing this, is there was so much going on. Fred!
I was wondering. I thought of Fred like an hour or so ago. And I was like,
Alan, always good to see you, man.
Fred, yes. Shout out
to Fred.
Everybody in the chat. Shout out to the whole Yang gang that was able
the entirety of the gang just showed up.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
You guys were awesome.
And Fred, I loved your tweet with the truck outside the White House, ready to load them in there.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
Again,
all right, folks.
You gotta go, Nick. If you gotta jump off, homie, go ahead and jump off.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I'll definitely keep in touch, guys.
Yeah, please do.
Please do.
Peace. Have a good one.
All right. That's awesome. And again, the main idea behind this channel is for interactions just like this, And again, like Toby said, like Elle said, we want people to come on with different we want people to come on with different points of view in different, backgrounds, and just share their experiences, and pretty much be able to come in a cool, calm, collective, chill spot and just kick it and just hang out and just talk. Chat again. You guys have always been on there. We've seen some new faces show up. Shout out to the new faces. Thank you guys for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Whether you believe it or not, the feedback and the energy that you guys put out in the chat, it carries over. And so we love it. As long as everybody still remains respectable at the end of the day, you hash it out, you shake hands or elbow bumps, whatever the case may be, fist bumps. At the end of the day, just know y'all still cool. Y'all can still have different opinions, but still be cool at the end of the day. And that's what we do too. If I got to put you on timeout, I will.
Oh man, yeah. I was gonna say, thank you for subbing as well.
Thank you. Always, yes.
Oh
yes.
Yes. I just take note of that. Actually, that's a very interesting. I remember you mentioned that before, and that's a very big thing, especially sort of as we were having these big national race conversations in the summer. There was the idea of, what if I am white or non-black and I have black children?
Mm-hmm.
How do I have conversations about race in the country? And that is just a thing that a lot of people don't know how to navigate.
Right.
True.
And I think that would be very interesting to hear about.
For sure. Yeah.
True. And I mean, I think last week we had a guy who came on here, was like, how do you have a conversation with black folks? And again, we told him, like, Elle even said it. She was actually the main one that said it. Like, you got to be uncomfortable. You have to. You have to be uncomfortable in order to have those conversations.
Right. You have to get out of your comfort zone and be like, if you're feeling comfortable, you're doing it wrong. Honestly, like you gotta feel nervous. You're gonna feel uncomfortable. You're gonna mess up. Your cheeks are gonna turn red. Your heart's gonna be pounding. But you gotta do it. You gotta say these things. It's normal.
your ears may get hot and red.
Yeah.
You know, so it happens. Yeah.
Despite the urge to do that, though.
Yes,
But you're gonna want to
cool yourself down.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is actually something literally that was mentioned. That literally, we're human. I remember we were talking about we do speak, we do breathe air and speak English.
Some parts that may be a little broken, but if you listen closely, you can understand what we're saying. So it's there.
Yeah, you have to be open to, listening and getting uncomfortable because we're probably going to say, Black people in general, not just us, but maybe us too. We're going to say things that'll make you uncomfortable. Like that's sort of the point. You're not used to this, so.
But it's all love.
Right.
All love.
It's all love at the end of the day. Oh man.
And one last thing I was gonna say. I mean, most of us are in the same ecosystem, but if you want to drop Twitter handles, because we've been having good engagement. We've been doing this more recently, just to kind of make sure we're subscribed and supporting shows. I definitely watched videos pretty much from every one of you. All these channels on, and so it's nice just for those who maybe aren't following. Drop your Twitter handles for the podcast and the shows, and even like regular old just Twitter users. I've seen some people here who maybe I haven't seen before, so it's nice that we are on the same network and we keep up to the conversations. So
yeah,
I'll follow. My follow limit is kind of stuck, but I'm trying to get that worked on because Twitter's playing games. But I'll at least make a note and I'll follow y'all. If I'm not already following, and keep up the coalition, keep up the conversations. This is really how it happens.
Yes, it is literally. And let's see, people that grew up around. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
No, for sure.
Oh yeah, but that's facts, Trumper for Yang. That's straight facts. And
like of course, like don't confuse familiarity with lacking ignorance. Like there's still going to be ignorance. There's still going to be things that you may not understand, or you still like assume or presume, and have like implicit biases of all that. But yeah, it's true that if you grow up around different races and things like that, you are going to feel more comfortable than if yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's straight facts. And I mean, I'll say like this, growing up in Grand Rapids, and especially the neighborhood I was in, it was predominantly Black, but I had a Mexican neighbor who had a chicken, running around in the yard. And then the next, day or two, we had tamales. They didn't know what a chicken was. Like, where happened to the rooster? Crowing at like 5 o'clock in the morning every night. Like, where did that go? Oh, we ate it. Okay. That was the best tamale from fresh food I've ever had. Like, flat out. And then one of my neighbors was a white guy, real cool, down to earth. And his dad was Black, Well, his stepdad was Black, but still, he was still cool, down to earth. We kicked it and everything else. It was just that commodity of being familiar with everybody and having that vibe and that bond. So it happens, and then there's some questions that they ask, like, how about this? What do you think about that? Like, they just didn't know, but at the same time, they wanted to know, Let's see what we got here. One of the best program.
I agree.
I did like that policy a lot. Underrated, but
I forgot about it.
If everybody does that, if everyone goes from a city school to like a rural area or like a suburban town in the outskirts, and you're just different demographics, different ways of life, like someone who may not be from an industrial town or a farming agricultural town, or like going to like Nevada where you have such a heavy service industry, maybe you're not used to that. It's just so, I feel like stuff like that, like at the low level, like I think a great thing about a lot of Yang's policies were if you enacted them, it would have created like a whole new generation of people who I feel like would have just been better off and not as susceptible to some of these like bad, either divisive sort of hate-filled rhetoric or whatever. Like there's a lot of things that if you just sort of at the beginning, you meet people, you have like a foundation, your family is well off because of having UBI, you have all these sort of things at the beginning, and you essentially would succeed from birth to adulthood and onwards. And so I think that policy was like a nice one. A black trader. Do we know black stock trader? Well,
we kind of did. We had Roberto Blake out at one point in time.
Yeah, true.
Well, yes, Roberto is the man. Roberto is like, yeah, he's like a whole financial guru, so that was cool. Marcus, he's into stocks. I don't know if is he a trader, Marcus Coleman?
I don't know.
Because I know his account says something about black stock trade, but he was on once.
Yeah.
Actually, the episode you were on, Fred, the Second Amendment.
Yeah. Yep.
So I do think that would be kind of a cool thing. We have to keep up the conversations about financial literacy and basically wealth because a lot of people have it and many of us don't.
This is true. This is true. You know. Yeah. Boom. There we go, Toby. All right.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt it at all. Funny enough, I got into stocks and all that stuff like 3 years ago. It was August of 2017. And like, I never really found a community necessarily of black traders. I just kind of did my own thing. Instagram, I sometimes follow accounts, but I do think it would be cool to have more conversations like that. Different professionals on. It's like, this is what an engineer looks like. This is what, we're here, we're visible. Without getting too ahead of myself, there's going to be quite a lot of professionals in industries that we should showcase in the coming weeks and months, but y'all have to wait.
Yeah, okay, Toby over here foreshadowing.
I always have ideas. Real talk. I was not that active on Twitter. Like I really only resurrected my Twitter to use for Yang, which is why I really only tweet things related to it on my Twitter, and therefore I wasn't as directly interacting with a lot of you guys. A lot of people interact with each other all the time. Right. I was more of a retweeter on the sidelines. Anonymous, and so I'm still getting to know some of y'all better and talk with y'all, but this has been a good conversation and
Agreed. So on that note, we are going to catch you guys next week with our Christmas special. In rule 1, I'm throwing this out there now. You gotta wear your ugly sweater. You gotta find an ugly sweater. You gotta wear it. I'm wearing mine on stream. Yes. I'm wearing mine on stream. So, chat, if you're able to all right, Fred. See you, homie. Thank you for stopping by. But if you guys are able to wear an ugly sweater, Turbo for Yang, thank you for stopping by.
Yeah, thank you.
See ya.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sweater. And then if you can post it on Twitter, what we're going to do, we're going to showcase it live, the ugly sweaters. No, there's no ugly sweater contest. Just want to bring in the spirit of Christmas because right now, this season, it sucks, but we're going to make it happen.
Yeah,
so
we can be ugly together.
There we go.
Remember SpongeBob. I'm ugly and I'm proud. I'm ugly and I'm proud. Say it loud. I'm ugly and I'm proud.
That's actually like not a bad thing. That's not a bad mantra.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
It's self-love and the best self-love and self-body. Everything.
It is. So with that, oh man. Thank you guys for joining. We will catch you guys next week. Same time, same channel. The 3 of us plus whoever. So we're gonna have fun. Until next time. Peace.
Pieces.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Bye.